Hi, my name is Kelly Wilbur, and I am one Catholic counselor. A number of people have asked me why I converted from atheism to Catholicism. And although I get this question from Catholics, I most often get it from atheists. And that isn't too surprising. It's the exact same question I posed to Christian converts when I was an atheist. At that time, Christianity to me seemed unnecessary, ridiculous, useless, and even dangerous. And I couldn't imagine a rational person buying into it. And yet, here I am. So how did I get from there to here? In looking back, I can see that my conversion followed three general themes: a theme of goodness, a theme of beauty, and a theme of truth. And if I follow a timeline that stretches from my teens through decades of atheism all the way into today, I can see that these three themes each went through three phases: a phase of deficit, a phase of recognition, and a phase of encounter. The first phase, from my teens into my mid-30s, was one of deficit. My deficit of the first theme, goodness, had to do with a deficit of love. I simply didn't know what love was or how to do it. My pattern would be this: I'd feel intense feelings for someone, I'd get into a relationship, the feelings would settle down, and then I'd end the relationship, thinking I had fallen out of love. And I did this over and over again, feeling that deficit of love grow, but thinking I could only fill it up with another relationship. My deficit of the second theme, beauty, had to do with purpose and meaning. I was a nihilist, so by definition, life had no meaning. And while I could intellectually support that belief, emotionally it left a deficit that would not stop crying out to be filled. My deficit of the third theme, truth, had to do with my understanding of God. Now, I wasn't just an everyday atheist, I was a militant atheist, going out of my way to ridicule Christianity whenever the topic came up. But that was due to a deficit of truth. I had never been taught that God was anything more than a flying spaghetti monster, and that understanding was so ingrained in me that I wasn't open to any other interpretation. The second phase, from my mid-30s to my early 40s, was one of recognition. Although I had felt deficits in my life, it took me a while to intellectually recognize and identify them. I recognized my deficit of goodness when I discovered a radically new definition of love. Within this new definition, I learned that love is an act of the will focused on the good of another. This kind of love is a commitment and therefore doesn't require someone else to generate some type of feeling in me. I can't fall out of this type of love. I can only choose not to practice it. I recognized my deficit of beauty when I could see that Christians had meaning and purpose in their lives. Now, I'll admit, at first I thought they were fooling themselves, but I couldn't deny the fact that they were fulfilled and I wasn't. At the very least, I wanted them to be right, and that motivated me to be more honest in exploring the possibility that they were right. I recognized my deficit of truth when I encountered Christians who could speak about God in an intelligent way. Through my discussions with them, I learned that true Christianity doesn't describe God as a tyrannical rule maker in competition with our free will. On the contrary, God is rooting for us, and He has entered into our world to help us become who we were meant to be. The final phase, one of encounter, began in my early 40s and directly led to my conversion. My encounter with goodness was an experience of reading 1 John chapter 4. There it says, God is love. And since I had already recognized love as something about will and not about self-gratification, I started to experience God as the perfect Father who is committed to willing the very best for me. And this isn't just something that God simply does. Going back to John, this love is something that God is. And that metaphysical connection between God and love is something unique to Christianity. My encounter with beauty was frankly an experience of miracles. And this seems to be a pretty common thing among converts. At some point, a person experiences an extraordinary recognition of God's divine providence that shakes up their worldview and opens them up to new possibilities. In other words, something happens that makes us recognize how we fit into a larger reality. When I was an atheist, I never found these miracle stories very compelling. Now that I'm on the other side, I think I know why. The miracles I'm speaking of have to do with a very specific purpose, and that is to help one person see how God has always been with them. It's like a message written in code that only the receiver can translate, so when others don't appreciate the content of that message, it isn't surprising. It wasn't necessarily meant for them. My encounter with truth was an experience of rational debate. I am not some credulous adopter of Catholicism, and I didn't become Catholic as a consequence of my culture. I explored the possibility of different sources for my encounters with goodness and beauty, including sticking with atheism or moving to Buddhism, Judaism, Islam, or Protestant Christianity. When it came down to who had the most compelling case for a description of reality that fit with my experience, Catholicism won hands down. From its 2,000-year-old philosophical tradition of exploring the nature of God to the historicity of Jesus Christ and His resurrection, my encounter with the truth of the Catholic faith helped to connect the strands of goodness and beauty I had already encountered. So that's how I got from there to here. I had deficits of goodness, beauty, and truth in my life. I recognized those deficits, and then they were all filled with the encounters of God I had through the Catholic Church. Now, a 6-minute video probably isn't enough to answer all the questions that might come up, so I invite you to enter into a dialogue with me. Feel free to start a discussion in the YouTube comments section or on my Facebook, Twitter, or Instagram pages, which I will link below. God bless.